One of the biggest problems in North Korea is the restriction to the rights of the people, including the freedom of religion. Christianity is one of the biggest religions in Korea, but it is also the most persecuted. In North Korea, Christians are often classified as being hostile by the government, and because of this, they are persecuted to the point where they're imprisoned, tortured, and sometimes even publicly executed just for holding their beliefs. There is a system of labor camps in North Korea, including Prison Camp 15, which holds roughly 6,000 Christians alone. Despite all of this, Christianity is the fastest growing religion in North Korea. There's an underground movement in North Korea of Christians that is roughly 400,000. Even though the government poses a huge threat to Christians and foreigners, there are many outside missionaries that are trying to help Christians in North Korea by sending Bibles, clothes, medicine, food, and other necessities to help them in their struggle to find God and to survive in such harsh conditions. Due to starvation and lack of proper medical care, as well as oppression of the people, has led to many North Koreans fleeing into China. However, in China, North Koreans are not considered refugees, and the Chinese government will repatriate them back to North Korea, where they will be imprisoned, tortured, or executed. More so for many of the North Korean refugee women that flee into China, it is especially dangerous. North Korean women are often trafficked into China, where they will be forced into marriages that they do not particularly want, or they will be sold into the sex trade. About 70 to 80% of North Korean female refugees will be trafficked into forced marriages or sex exploitation in China. Once trafficked into forced marriages, North Korean women will be subjected to physical and psychological violence from their new husbands and families. Often their husbands will maintain power and control with threats of arrest and deportation, making it impossible for them to leave.
North Korea enforces various laws to keep its society under severe rules. One famous example is the 3 generations of punishment rule.
This rule states that the preceding and succeeding generations of anyone who disobeys the rule is punished as well. For example, if I were to disobey the rule, not only would I be punished, but my children would have to be born in the camp and they would have to die in the camp, as well as my grandchildren, they would have to be born in the camp and die in the camp as well too.
One of the most famous cases where this rule has been applied is Kaechon internment camp. In this camp, many political prisoners are placed in. For these prisoners, their families are born into this camp and they will be put through the same suffering that the parents go through. For example, if a prisoner is put in and a child is born in here, the child will not have the opportunity to attend school and instead will be placed in the field. When that child grows older and they have children, those children will also remain in the camp as well. It is important to realize that the 3 generations rule in this aspect not only applies to one person, but it encompasses a whole family. This therefore enforces stricter law and for people to be less likely to disobey the law, because not only are you putting yourself at risk, but you're putting the people around you at risk. The psychology of this law is that not only do you impact yourself, but you impact the people around you. And with that in mind, you're less likely to actually go against the law.
Some examples of disobeying the government would be trying to escape North Korea, speaking up against the government, or even performing non-criminal acts against the government.
Or I was reading about a famous defector, and it was more like an autobiography. And his name is like Shin Dong-hyuk, and he wrote Escape from Camp 14. Basically, he talks about how he was taught at a young age to inform the prisoners if there were any plans of escape or any type of method where you're actually disobeying the government. So he turns his brother and mother in, thinking that he does the right thing. Instead, they end up torturing him for 8 months by putting him in a cell where he can barely stand or lie down, and they hang him from a hook on his back, and they burn coals under his back, and to this day he has severe burns from it. So in that sense, we see how not only was the mother and the father affected as well, but you see that the children are affected. And on top of it, after those 8 months of torture, they dragged him and his father, who he hadn't seen for the longest time, to the fields, and they had them blindfolded, handcuffed. Then they put them down and they made him watch the execution of his mother, who was hung, and his brother, who was shot at by a firing squad. So it really enforces that you don't disobey the government, because not only do you put yourself at risk, but you put many, many, many people around you at risk. So I think that's the psychology behind this rule. But this topic is it's just such a confusing one. I don't know, like, what do these like people think when they actually have this government ruling this way? Like, how long do you honestly think that you can keep this type of rule going? And the only reason you think you can keep it going is because if someone else tries to interfere, you threaten them with nuclear weapons. It just doesn't make any sense. And I think another problem that we face with North Korea is the fact that the only thing the outsiders can do is provide humanitarian aid, which doesn't even get to North Korea in the most efficient manner. Honestly, the humanitarian aid to any third world nation doesn't get there entirely or in the most efficient manner in general. But the issue is more, until the government starts fixing itself, you can't fix the lives for these people, which is absolutely terrible, but unfortunately that's the reality of it. And yeah, I don't know. You know, those dystopias that they have in the books, or even the utopias, because technically, in my opinion, I don't think a utopian society is ever actually an optimistic one. In essence, it's a very pessimistic one. And what they basically try to do is enforce the story of that book, or yeah, the story in that book. But obviously this, the rule in North Korea started before that, and they think that it works. But in the end, if you even read those books, yeah, people die, but you also see that people have this mentality where they know this is wrong in the end. And it's kind of scary to see that people think that they actually can enforce such a society.